You guys are going to be famous now.
Awesome. Let's do it.
Just because really struggling.
There's our intro.
I've had advice given to me, but it was confusing and didn't really work.
Recovery Talk helped me help a friend.
I like it. You can call in and talk about your problems. They offer solutions. That's what I was looking for. Recovery Talk.
All right, 10 seconds. Have a problem? Know someone who does? Call us. 828-262-1567. This is Recovery Talk on WATA.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to Recovery Talk, Hope and Help for the Hurting. Recovery Talk exists to get stories of positive recovery out there. Uh-oh. Sorry. Getting a little feedback here. Sorry, folks. Anyway, Recovery Talk is brought to you by Freedom Auto Tech. Freedom Auto Tech is the local auto shop here in town that you can go get a good job done in your car and understand that all the proceeds from that shop are going to help people in recovery, specifically through the work of Freedom Farm Ministries. The number for Freedom Auto Tech is 828-355-4434. That's 828-355-4434. Give them a call, get on the schedule. They're there to help you out for any of your car needs. Want to make a special announcement for another program here in the High Country called Carrie's Home for Women. Carrie's Home is a women's transitional house currently, and they are doing a fundraiser that's going to be from 9 to 2 at the La Quinta Inn. That's on the 105 bypass, and they are selling Christmas gifts. So if you are looking for some Christmas gifts, get an early jump on shopping this Saturday, 9 to 2 at the La Quinta Inn on the 105 bypass. Go in there and know that the profits from that fundraiser will be going to help out Carrie's Home for Women. So this morning, I'm joined by a couple. We have the Hartmans here, and Drew and Amanda have agreed to come on. I asked Drew last week because he hit a milestone in his own recovery journey in that he has successfully completed 1 year of the Freedom Farm program, and on the day that he completed, he moved immediately out. So, he moved immediately out, not because he was tired of us, because I know that could never have been the facts, but because during his time up here, he actually moved his family up here, or his family moved up here. So we got Drew in to help him out with his recovery journey, and in return, we moved a family up to the High Country. Yeah. And Amanda has agreed to come on here so she can tell us all the juicy parts of Drew's story. But I met these two just over a year ago, just a couple days, because it was Friday, right?
Yep.
So say hi to everybody in Facebook world and on WATA.
Hey, everybody.
Okay, so so tell us, everybody is interested to hear your story, Drew, about, what was life like before you got into your recovery journey?
All right, so growing up, I started out with my addiction. Started out as like a social setting, drinking on the weekends with friends, partying at a friend's house whose parents were out of town, that type of thing, hanging out down by the river in the summer times, drinking, smoking pot. And then it just turned into one of these things where it's like, this feels good. It should be like this all the time. And so, I started smoking weed every day and drinking every weekend religiously. And
how old would you say you are about this time?
15, 16.
15, 16, okay.
Yeah. And I was always kind of a mischievous kid. I remember sneaking drinks out of my stepdad's liquor bottles, or if somebody left a beer, take a sip. And it was just one of these things I did it because I knew I wasn't supposed to. And then when I was old enough to really hang out with friends on my own, that's just what we did. We drank, we smoked. And I guess something that was a social thing for other people and my friends, it turned into one of these things where this feels good, I should be doing this all the time. And that's sort of how I got started with that.
So when would you say it progressed from being like hanging out with your friends to this was something that you were doing all the time?
Well,
was
I was
still about 15, 16, or did it take a little while to get there?
I started dabbling with the harder drugs a few years later, you know, cocaine, pills, that type of thing. But I mean, every day, whether I was with somebody or I was by myself, usually I was by myself, you know, I always had something on me to intoxicate me, whether it was alcohol or some form of drug. And I would say I was probably 18 or 19 when I started getting into harder things like cocaine and pills, and then I started using them intravenously. And about that time was actually the bath salt craze. The synthetic was when the synthetics started coming out, and I started using those intravenously. It was a big thing around where I was growing up, and it was kind of one of those things where you were buying it at the store, so you knew they always had it. You didn't have to wait on the drug dealer, and it was cheap. You know, we started doing that a lot, and that went on for probably about a year. And one day I kind of like had this thought, like, you know, this is not the way I want my life to be going. I had been up for a few days, and it was pretty tough. It was a pretty bad situation, and my mom was actually living in North Carolina, and I was still in Virginia, and I just had this wake up call one day, and I was like, I need to get out of here and get away from this. And I moved to North Carolina, and
How old were you when that happened?
I would say about 20 years old.
20 years old.
2021. And I came down here to get away from the group of friends that I was hanging out with, the things that I was doing, and I got off of the drugs, but I started drinking heavily. It turned in from being more of a drug user to, you know, I'll do the socially acceptable thing and I'll drink. You know, that's okay to do. I didn't want to give it all up, and I started drinking every day and doing that sort of thing.
You know, it's funny. I just recently, whenever I do find something to watch when it comes to pertaining to substance abuse and doing some kind of report or whatever, news report, I usually will find myself watching it if it's something available. And I just watched this big show on the synthetics and the popularity of them around military bases.
Mm-hmm.
So you had all these the head shops like galore around these military bases, and they actually followed around these people that were active military people using the bath salts. Have been pretty much outlawed. I haven't seen them around. I don't know. I never did those things, but I have met people that have done them, and they have told me some pretty bad horror stories about them. Keeping up for days, massive hallucinations.
Absolutely.
Wasn't there someone down in Florida, that bit someone's face off or something like that?
Yeah, I don't even know.
Yeah,
but yes, that happened.
Did some really bad psychosis stories that I know that came out of the whole bath salt era. But the popularity of them, because of something you just said, it was like, you know, it's available at a store. It was right there, and then the other in the illicit drug use popularity, there wasn't really drug tests for these things. You know,
that was the whole idea, because you could pass a drug test. It was the availability, the price was very low, and you had multiple places to get it any time of day.
So you've always, from what I know about your story up until this point, you've always been a pretty highly functioning guy. So you got through school, right?
Mm-hmm.
And did you go to college too?
I did not go to college. I was already partying by then. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but when I came down to North Carolina, I wasn't down here very long before I got a really good opportunity to become an aircraft mechanic. I didn't go to school for that. I met a guy, and he got me in that way, so I kind of lucked into that situation, and that was another thing that really kicked off my alcoholism. I needed some kind of buzz every day, and so I drank because I had to be able to pass a drug test. And then another thing I started getting in, you know, as I was drinking more, you know, there would be times where I'd be pretty drunk, and I'd be like, you know, I want something else. So I'd get the synthetic marijuanas, that type of thing, and did that for a long time. That was pretty bad stuff. Had seizures on it, you know.
While driving.
Yeah, very, very, very bad stuff.
And the synthetic marijuana. Well, I guess it's kind of bad to associate those two, because there's nothing marijuana about them. There's nothing cannabinoid about them. They're just chemicals that are put on some kind of medium, like potpourri, you know. And there's people drip chemicals on this stuff, and they sell it as synthetic marijuana, but it's just a chemical compound. But so in your 20s, you get into a good job that has a pretty good career as far as an airplane mechanic. I bet that there's a pretty good career path, and you find yourself drinking a lot and getting into the synthetic cannabinoids, or whatever you want to call it. I bet with the outward success of you being what seemed like on a good path, you probably didn't get a lot of flack from a lot of family or friends. So would you say you had to be pretty good at hiding what you were doing?
I was very good at hiding, very, very deceptive. You know, I went to work every day. I performed well at my job, so there were no questions there. But yeah, it's just, I was trying to fill a void, and it took me forever to realize that that's what I was doing. I wasn't happy unless I was intoxicated or had some form of buzz. And even during that time, you know, I had 3 days off, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so I would, you know, the alcohol started not being enough, so I'd get a paycheck, and on Friday night, knowing I didn't have to be at work for a few days, I'd get some cocaine or crack or a pill that would be out of my system by Monday morning before I went back, so there's no risk of failing a drug test. And it just kind of gradually started progressing again into the harder things, and then what saved me from that was meeting my now wife, Amanda, and she just put a stop to all that. I was still drinking, and then when she saw that was an issue, she pretty much gave me an ultimatum. You know, you can keep doing what you're doing, or you can stop and keep me and the kids.
The amazing Todd that helps run the show from a remote location. I don't know if you guys know about him, but he was in the Air Force for, I think, 22 years. I don't know, you can correct me, Todd. But he was in charge of quite a few people, and he wrote on Facebook that he had to discharge 5 people from the Air Force because of spice, or what's called the synthetic marijuana. So we're getting close to a break, and I want to pick up again when we come back about how, you know, the drinking and the weekend partying was starting to get out of hand. You met Amanda, and she started to help kind of put some of that stuff, you know, subdue some of that stuff because of the relationship, but obviously it didn't last. Probably you had to just up your sneaky game, and
absolutely,
and basically just trying to, what they call white knuckle stop without anything. 21 years. Todd served for 21 years. Thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you.
Never is the answer if you've got a problem, because you're only addressing the symptoms. But when we come back, we will pick up where we left off and hear more from your better half. Stay with us. Okay.
Have you ever been stuck in a tight spot?
That's some constructive criticism for me.
You're doing fine. You're doing fine. So we've only gone 16 minutes into the show. We go to 11:30. So just know you're not, not in a rush. So I think that before next break, we should probably talk more about the struggle of just trying to put it down.
Yeah.
And whatever you guys feel like sharing about that, the strain of relationships, and you obviously had quite a bit of legal trouble, which we're on the other side of now, right?
Yes.
Yes.
You're just having to go through some of the penalty right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of that.
Which
Which was
you're able,
minimal.
you have freedom.
Yes.
So, 'cause if it was up to me, he'd be gone, son. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So before next break, you want me to talk about like the deception and lying to her still, and then I'll get into the
Let's
CBD,
talk about
the
like
CBD
this.
stuff.
Let's say, so good job. You got a good woman, and everything a human being could possibly want. She's helped you cut it down, but it just, talk about how that wasn't enough and what
That
happened.
was only temporary. Yeah.
Talk about like the two accidents and some of the things
Being a
that,
dry drunk, pretty much.
There he is.
yeah.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Not bad. Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Thanks, man.
Stole your headphones.
Oh, yeah. Here, let me move.
All right, don't worry about it. My God, why you act like it's a major crime?
Could be. It depends on who it is.
Headphones, just use them.
Hey, I'm just saying, I've had people snap
Believe it
at
or
a
not,
lot less.
when you started in this business, there was one set of headphones everybody used. And God forbid if you left that studio with those headphones.
Oh no, Brian told me the story.
The catch is you can only take advantage of this offer until 11 a.m.
Am I talking loud enough?
I think so,
You don't
yeah.
have time to dine in, just call for delivery or
I mean, I'm not worried about this. I've had some people tell me that, but I don't know if it's the Facebook Live or it's their Facebook,
Yeah.
access. So,
because
because I've had other people tell me,
There's LV just said say hello.
look at that, Pastor Scott is watching.
Awesome. Hey, Pastor Scott.
Mike Fletcher is watching.
Awesome.
My wife says hello to you guys.
Hi,
Hey,
LV.
Annie Mock, and Daniel, who is Mike Register's stepson,
Okay.
is watching.
Okay, yeah. We know them.
So,
Yeah.
my wife says love you both.
Oh,
We love you.
Oh, I told you that Todd last night. You know your neighbors too, right? He lives out there by you.
Yeah, I know he lives close.
Yeah.
I think we looked it up. He's like a quarter of a mile away.
Yeah, he's super close.
right
to
around
you.
the corner.
But they
Yeah.
can't do it alone.
I need to catch up with them. I don't think I've ever met his wife. I want to meet
She's
them.
super nice.
She's cool.
Sharon.
No. We're talking about Todd. Oh wait, are you talking about?
I'm talking about Todd.
You're talking about Todd Mortensen.
Yeah,
Yeah, we didn't even talk about that.
Oh, I was talking about Todd Tomat. I thought Todd Tomat lived out there.
he does.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Seconds, yo.
So Todd does, and so does Todd Mortensen.
I
So we
don't
will.
think I know who that is.
Yeah, we need to talk about that
Yeah,
after the show or next break or something.
absolutely.
Go to fireadapted.org.
So you want me to kind of just talk about the deception and being a dry drunk and then turn it over to her for her point of view?
Yeah, I mean,
At fireadapted.org.
Whatever, you're the director of this thing.
Just go with it.
yeah, you're good. You're doing fine.
Take your time, though.
Don't get nervous.
I'm
Three.
nervous.
At fireadapted.org.
Welcome back to Recovery Talk. Thanks for sticking with us. We got Drew and Amanda with us. Before we get back into the story, just want to tell you about two things. First, our show sponsor, Freedom Auto Tech. Their number is 828-355-4434. That's 828-355-4434. And winter is here. A lot of times it's a really good idea to go in there and get some regular maintenance on your car. Maybe you need some snow tires. Give them a call, whatever your car needs are, and know that whatever profits are going through that shop are going to help the ministry of Freedom Farm, which is a recovery ministry for men here in the high country. And we want to just tell you again about the little shopping Christmas extravaganza that's being held for the Carries Home for Women program from 9 to 2 at the La Quinta Inn on the 105 bypass. There's just a variety of items for Christmas shopping, things like jewelry, candles, and whatnot. So give them go by there, stop by, give them some support. All the proceeds from that fundraiser will go to help women in recovery here in the high country. So Hartman's. So you've met Amanda now, and she has helped suppress some of your substance abuse by basically probably pointing it out and saying, stop it, right? So how did that work? Tell us how that worked for you.
So in the beginning, it was great because she didn't know I had the problems like I did. So she was allowing me to drink. You know, we were having a good time together. I had the girl, the house we were living in, you know, great job. Everything was great. And then she saw some of the issues I was having with substances, and she gave me the ultimatum. And I knew I didn't want to lose her, so I put everything down for a while. And, you know, a short while. I think the longest I went sober was probably 6 months to a year. But I wouldn't consider that a period of sobriety. I was just dry drunk.
Okay.
And I was miserable. You know, I had everything. I had the American dream, you know, house, wife, kids. And I was inside. I wasn't happy. You know, I wanted more. And started dabbling again. And what's done in the dark always comes to the light. And eventually, whether it was vehicle accidents or just things like that, it was brought to the light. And I don't know why, but she stuck by my side and battled through my struggles, and I'm thankful that she did. But I know it wasn't easy, and it's still not easy. There's still a lot of broken trust.
What about on your side of it? Like during the 6 months to a year, during the dabbling, what were things like from your perspective of the whole thing?
So I think the hardest part was during the time that he wasn't drinking. He was still doing some of the stuff that I wasn't aware of, like the spice, the synthetic stuff that I'd never been around, so I didn't know what to look for. The first thing that kind of clued me in was he had a pretty serious accident, and that was on the way to court in Virginia, and he had gone up the night before, and I got a phone call that he was in a pretty serious accident. So his mom and I headed up to Virginia to help with that. He couldn't remember a thing, blacked out before he had the accident. So that was the first accident.
So let me get this straight. He was on his way to court for, what was that court for?
I think
DUI.
A DUI, and you had an accident that you were blacked out on
Spice.
Yeah. So you blacked
Doing
out
it at the wheel, and next thing I know, I was on the other side of the interstate, upside down in my truck. I had flipped end over end about 3 times and almost landed in oncoming traffic.
Did you know that this was a drug-related thing at this time?
No.
What was the story though? What happened?
I don't even remember what I said. I think I just said I blacked out, you know. I don't remember.
Well, and he had gone up. I had begged him to stay with family. He has family up there, and I had asked him to stay with family, and instead he went and stayed with friends in Blacksburg, I think. And so I knew that there was some lying going on, and I just had a gut feeling, but it didn't feel quite right with the first accident, and he had just purchased the truck. It was a brand new truck. Hadn't even made the first payment on it. And so we got that resolved. Everything seemed to be going okay for a little while, and about 2 months later, after he purchased another truck, I got a phone call about another accident. And he had hit a tree head on going almost 60 miles an hour. And I had to leave work again. On the way to the scene, an ambulance passed me, but he had already told me he had turned down the ambulance ride. He was waiting on me to get there to take him to the hospital to avoid, having to ride the ambulance. And so when the ambulance passed me, going towards the accident, I thought, well, that's not for him. But when I got there, he had fallen out and had a grand mal seizure from the spice. The accident was caused from spice. He had our dog in the car. The dog almost died as well. And he was so out of it when we got there, and I could tell that he was high on something when we got there. And they were trying to get him to get on the ambulance because he had such a severe seizure.
You can refuse an ambulance ride when you have a seizure, huh?
Yeah. I did. Well, they didn't. Well, see, here's the thing. I actually had 2 seizures in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I had the initial one that caused the accident.
From
Didn't realize that's what had happened.
Yeah.
I thought I just blacked out, but I realized after the second one that I had a seizure. So after the paramedics and the police got there, they did a field sobriety test. I passed that. They did a breathalyzer, passed that because, there was no alcohol involved. And while waiting for more paramedics to come and my wife to come, I went to the truck and got the pipe that I was smoking the spice out of and hit it again. And fell out and had a 5-minute long seizure. And when I came to, everybody was standing on top of me.
Wait a second.
Mm-hmm.
So you're at the accident scene.
Yeah.
And you went back into the car and used more of the drugs. How did you not get seen?
They didn't see me. I said, I need to get some things because I'm going to the hospital, but I want her to take me. And I knew I was going to be there for a while. And I hit it again and fell out immediately for what they said was 5 minutes. And
did they find the pipe at that time?
No, they didn't find anything.
They didn't even search his truck.
They had no idea what it was. They just thought I was having a fit of seizures.
And when I got there, I could tell. I knew he was high.
So all your worst nightmares are coming. You probably had suspicion.
Oh yeah.
And it's all coming to fruition right now at the accident. And you're in the state of mind that you just totaled a second brand new vehicle.
$50,000 worth of trucks in a 4-month period.
And your best thought at that moment is, let me try to go get right after this accident another hit of the stuff that just caused me to have a seizure, and you have another seizure.
Absolutely.
So what happens next?
So we, went through the hospital, lots of medical bills. I ended up losing my insurance, my car insurance, because of the underwriter. He was on it. So I lost really good car insurance. There was just a lot that went along with it, but after that, he was on FMLA leave from his job because of the seizures, and he was going to neurology appointments and stuff. And I was terrified because he was at home and I had to go to work, and I knew he was doing something he wasn't supposed to. So the fear...
But you still didn't know for sure?
I knew. I mean, I had that,
You hadn't had that conversation.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had these fears of having to go into work, and I wasn't doing my best job at work either, because all I could think about was what he was doing or not doing, or what I was going to come home to, or what the next phone call was going to be. And I don't even remember what happened after that. There's been so much, but he ended up going back to work, and things kind of settled down for a little while, for a very short while.
So let me ask you, were you going to neurology appointments telling him I have no idea what's going on?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I was master of deception and just played the victim and manipulated, and she still didn't even know fully what was going on. It was just a string of crazy things that happened to her, but she knew in the back of her mind something was going on, but didn't know what.
Well, where we're at in the story, you're a big ball of mess, a lot of confusion, but we're coming up on break, and when we come back, I guess we'll start to unravel this mess and try to work our way towards now.
Yeah.
Stay with us. We'll be back in a minute. You're doing fine.
It's the High Country's information station, AM 1450 and 96.5
So,
FM.
got half the show done so far. You doing okay?
Yeah.
You doing fine?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Comfortable?
Yeah. Feel good.
What's up, James? You didn't call me yet.
A winter storm warning is in effect for the mountains and northern foothills until 1 p.m. today.
Not to get like this last part. I'm trying not to get emotional, because reliving all that stuff is it's the first time I think that I've actually gone through all of it, and since everything happened, it's hard.
I know. You've been through, I can't believe you're still sitting there next to me.
I know. It's crazy. But we're not even through the bad stuff yet.
We're not to the bad stuff yet. We hadn't
I
even
still
got there
didn't think I
yet.
had a problem up until now. I mean, yeah.
We have,
Everybody else had the problem.
So, when we come back, you're going to have like 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Then we'll have a break and then a final 12 minutes. So,
I'll transition into when I had my, rock bottom situation that brought me here before next break.
I'm gonna start with the one where you were still living at the house and you.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about my last 2 DUIs, and
When I kicked you out, and okay.
in between those is when I realized, and then I'll take us into coming to Freedom Farm, knowing where I needed to be.
People need affordable clean, safe.
How much time do we have before?
And with the storm, it shows us that we've got work.
We got plenty of time.
I'll try and get some tissue just in case.
Okay. You got 5?
Charge in connection with Jamal Khashoggi's murder. Correspondent Holly Williams is in Saudi Arabia's capital, Riyadh.
I think the only time I've ever been around that synthetic weed was just once, and it was at this one party, and this guy came up to me asking if I wanted some, and he thought we bonded because we had the same name. He's like, Mike, let's go 2 mics need to get higher, and I'm like, no, we don't. No, we don't. But he looked like there was only 5% of him mentally there. His body was just moving, but there was nothing going on upstairs. Like his eyes were dead. Still walking around and stuff.
That stuff's scary, dude.
It was horrifying.
It's been around forever, and then every time they catch on, they're already changing the chemical for the next batch. They just tweak it a little bit, so they can, it's bad stuff.
Like, there's no way you're doing a terrible job of selling it. Like, there's no way I want any part of it.
Magazine dedicates 10 pages to each ACC school, each jam-packed with stats and information. Pre-order your copy today by going to accsports.com and clicking on the pre-order banner.
Kubota's L2501 DT packs powerful performance in one easy-to-operate compact tractor. Now get payments as low as
We're good, man.
0% APR.
Yeah, I understand you're working a lot.
Now through December 31st.
Call me when you can, though. I'm talking to people.
For more information.
The pound is plunging and cabinet members are bailing out. It's not the best of times for Prime Minister Theresa May and her Brexit deal.
Yeah, big mess over in England.
Today, the deal that was
There's always a
agreed to
mess in
yesterday
England.
is not the final agreement.
You gonna be alright?
Yeah. Okay. No, I cried about everything.
That's good. I'm not pretty quick when you start talking.
Yeah, man. Yep.
Time flies when you have not a terrible time, from what I found.
When you have lots to talk about.
No, I mean, just I've been in situations like this isn't the worst thing. Oh, time's done. Okay.
Members of the legislative subcommittee are calling for an
Unfortunately, doctor's appointments or anything like that, no, those take forever.
They take forever. And they make you wait forever.
Like, get there 15 minutes early so your appointment starts on time. I was there 20 minutes early. I went in 30 minutes after.
Yeah.
I asked the doctor once, was it really that long? Yeah. I'm curious what you were doing.
Getting any good feedback?
No.
You know, this is a lot of people watch.
Sorry about that.
It gets passed around a lot more later. So.
Yeah, we've got several
U.S.
people
military
that
officials
wanted to
are
tune in,
indicating the
couldn't,
mission
so
of
they'll be
U.S.
watching
troops
it
at the
later.
southern
So.
border could be short-lived. CBS News correspondent Cammie McCormick reports from the Pentagon.
The main mission of the troops, about 5,800, has been to
It's
put a
driving me
concertina
crazy.
wire and build
I
housing
feel like my eye
for
keeps
border
twitching,
patrol
but it's the light.
Oh.
Well, it always freaks me out because there's that little box right there with the phone on it that'll strobe whenever you have a phone call. So I'm seeing the kind of flicker and I'm looking, I'm like, no, no one's calling. Am I losing my mind?
Police say a pedestrian was killed in a crash involving a train. WRAL reports the crash took place in the Durham area. Durham police say the crash happened around 7:15 on Wednesday. Mike Rayleigh, NCN.
WSOC-TV,
Okay.
Severe Weather Center 9, high country weather.
That's weird. About
So icy
30
travel
seconds.
out there. As we head to the afternoon, temps should warm up enough above freezing where things thaw out and melt a bit. But then tonight...
All right, Daniel's watching the whole show live because he's off work today.
Accumulations overall.
Mike Register's stepson.
But for most of us,
Oh,
less.
awesome.
We're lows on the low 20s, so icy travel early tomorrow, 40s and sunshine tomorrow afternoon. From Severe Weather Center 9, I'm meteorologist.
All right, 5 seconds.
High Country Radio. This is WATA 1450 and 96.5 FM.
Welcome back to Recovery Talk. That was a long break. Recovery Talk is hope and help for the hurting. Hopefully you're being encouraged by the Hartman story today. Just a couple quick shout outs. One to our show sponsor, Freedom Auto Tech. Freedom Auto Tech is a auto shop here in town that solely exists to run a business in order for the profits to support men's recovery here in the high country. It's a professional shop. Give them a call if you have something with your car that needs looked at. 828-355-4434. That's 828-355-4434. And Carrie's Home for Women, which is a transitional home for women here in the high country, that women that struggle with substance abuse, that have been to a program, that need a place to transition back into regular life. They're holding a fundraiser at the La Quinta Inn from 9 to 2 on Saturday, and there's all kinds of holiday gifts you can go in there and buy, and there will be other special vendors there and door prizes. So go over there and check them out. La Quinta Inn, 9 to 2, 105 Bypass on Saturday, and know that anything you purchase over there, all the profits go to help women in recovery here in the High Country. So off air just now during the break, you said we haven't really gotten even to the bad stuff yet. So I'm just going to turn it back over to you guys, pick up where we left off with your story.
So yeah, just the deception continued on, lying and sneaking around, trying to hide things from my wife Amanda. And there were periods of sobriety, and then just miserable periods of sobriety. And then when the sobriety got boring, I would find something else to get my hands on that I could still maintain a good job and keep making money, that type of thing. So I found out about this stuff that was advertised as CBD oil, and it was just, I guess, a liquid form of the synthetics. It was sold as CBD, but it got you high, and I would use it in an e-cigarette, a vapor, one of these vapes that people use. And I was driving a pretty fair distance to get it, and this stuff, it gave me the head change I was looking for, a little bit of a buzz, enough that I could feel something different and get home and just keep up the deception without her knowing. And even in the back of her mind, she still knew that something was going on, because I would lie about where I was, why things took longer than they should have, that type of thing. Well, I got tired of driving the distance I was to get this stuff, and found about where I could get a larger amount for less, and for less money, and I got my hands on that, and that was just the last stop before I got to recovery. I got this stuff, and I would hit it, and then hours would pass, and my body would be going, but my mind wasn't there. I have no recollection of things. I didn't know how to get home a couple times. I hit it one morning before I went to work, and headed 2 hours the wrong way. I didn't know how I got there. So
before we get to that, though, leading up to that, there was, I knew that you were doing something, and I knew you were high, but you would do your best to convince me that I was crazy. And he would look at me in the face and say, and he would get angry at me, because I knew he was, but then I would feel like, am I really losing my mind? Am I really that crazy that I think he's doing something and he's not? And I would seriously get to the point to where I was questioning my mind, just because he would take it to that extreme. And so when he started doing this stuff, there would be hours at a time he would disappear and say that he was going to his mom's to do yard work, or say that he was going by his old place of employment where he had been laid off, to see what was going on out there. And I knew something wasn't right. But this particular morning, there was one particular morning, and this was the last straw for me. This was when I said, you have to leave. He had gotten up he has to be at work at 6 a.m. He had gotten up and disappeared downstairs for 20 minutes, and I didn't know what he was doing. And so he came back upstairs and was in the bathroom, and when I got up and walked in there, he was so messed up he could barely stand. So this stuff, I think, is more addictive than a lot of stuff out there. I mean, it just took him over, and I told him I knew that he couldn't drive in that state of mind, and so I finally told him, and it got physical. I was so angry at that point that I finally told him, I said, you need to text your boss and tell him you're not coming into work and you need to go back to bed. The kids heard it. They heard everything. They've experienced a lot of this stuff with us, and they're in trying to get to the point to where they can trust him again too. But that was my breaking point, and that day was when he packed up and he left. And now, go ahead and...
Yeah, so right before I came to Freedom Farm, I got 2 DUIs. Fell asleep at the wheel using this stuff. I don't even remember where I was, because it messed up my memory so bad using that stuff.
So let's recap real fast. So you've got a DUI that you wrecked a truck up. Okay, then you wrecked another truck not too long after that, but you didn't get DUIs for those two.
I didn't.
So you've wrecked 2 trucks, you've had 1 DUI, and now you get 2.
I've had 3 already at this point, and those were all alcohol related. So these last 2 that I got, fell asleep at the side of the road. They knew I was intoxicated. They did blood work, but they didn't. They knew it wasn't alcohol, but they knew it was something. They did blood work. And between this time, we split up. She kicked me out. That's when all this happened. She kicked me out. I was laying on my mom's couch because I was staying there for a few days. And when she walked in and she asked, "Are you ready to get help?"
I had talked to his mom that morning. I said, I haven't heard from Drew. He had already moved out, and I was concerned because he would still text me and let me know he was okay.
Right.
Obviously, I still cared about him, and we were not married at that point. I just want to clear that up. We were just dating. But I texted his mom, and that was right after she had gotten the phone call that he had been arrested the night before, and he had been in a car accident and didn't know it. So I helped her get him bailed out and stuff, that I didn't that time. This was when she had already bailed you out and you were at home. And I asked her, I said, I've done some research on some programs. I think it's time, or else he's going to end up dead if we keep going down this road. Is it okay if I go talk to him? And she was at work, and she said, yes, absolutely. Freedom Farm was the one that I had already chosen. I had done some research.
She walked in, and I was, in a state of misery, like my world is like falling apart. She walks in, asks if I'm ready to get help, and I'm still wanting to get high. And I told her, yes, I'll get help so that I could come back home, kind of rekindle that. But I was still wanting to get high, and not even a week later is when this last incident happened. And I was heading to work and headed 2 hours the wrong direction on the stuff that I was using.
On the interstate.
Was all over the road. I don't remember how I got there. Had never been there before. This man thought I was having road rage and trying to hit him because I was all over the road. And when I came to, I kind of had my head hanging like on the side of the window of the door, and he was pointing a pistol in my face because he thought I was trying to hit him. And that was my second DUI in a 1-week period. And I sat in there for 2.5 weeks, and that's when I did a lot of praying, a lot of foxhole prayers. Yeah, I sat in jail for 2 weeks. A lot of foxhole prayers, and God finally, when we got this thing worked out where I was going to come to Freedom Farm, I came home, and it wasn't probably a week later that I came up to Boone.
So get it just to make sure you got it straight. Your substance abuse got so bad that you kicked him out. Mm-hmm. While he was kicked out, he gets a DUI. Mm-hmm. They don't get you. They took blood work, but they knew you were intoxicated. You visit him. He agrees to go to recovery. Mm-hmm. He moves back home.
No, he didn't move back home.
Oh, he
didn't. I wouldn't let him come back home.
Okay, so you go to, and after agreeing to go, you get another DUI. Mm-hmm. Because of
He continued to use for that entire week.
For an entire week.
Yeah.
And while in jail is when I realized, okay, I do have a problem. It took that much.
You have a problem, and it's not that Amanda's crazy.
I thought it was.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's when I finally realized, and this is probably 12 years of using. I'm finally like, I'm done. I don't want this anymore. I need help. And I was brought to Boone, to Freedom Farm.
So we went and bailed him out. Actually, his mom bailed him out on a Wednesday. He came back, and I went over and visited, and we agreed. He had a breakdown. That was when I knew he was serious. I could see it in his eyes. And so at that point, he said, I want to be with y'all until there's availability for me, or I can leave for Freedom Farm. And I said, okay. And so he and his mom and I decided that we needed to have somebody with him at all times. He had to be babysat to make sure that, but at that point I knew he was ready. So he did come home. He was home for about a month, actually.
Was it a month?
About 3 weeks before he came to Freedom Farm. It was about 3 weeks.
Oh yeah, we had some doctors things to take care of, and some things like that. Yeah.
And he stayed busy. He stayed home, and we got married a week before he came into the program.
You got married a week before he came.
After all that, she married me to show her commitment that she was going to be there while I went through this year-long program.
Wow. So that's going to be, I think, when we come back, we're coming up on a break, but when we come back, the theme of our final time on the show is commitment, because you made a significant commitment up here, and it even got more significant while you were here, in my opinion. So, crazy. After all of that, you get married before he goes to a program for a year. So I think anybody that's watching or listening or will watch and listen want to know, what were you thinking at that point?
I'm still
Still wondering that. So my friend Paul says, hey, from Georgia. What's up, Paul? Stay with us. We'll be back in just a minute. So this will be the final, which will be about 12 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. This is a short 2-minute break.
Short one.
So you're gonna bring up the fact that I moved them up here and still stuck it out, that type of thing?
Well, I think, I think I'll kind of cue you to where you can.
6200 or learn more at freedomfarmministries.org.
I missed the beginning. What substance is making him crazy? Paul, he was using synthetics, a lot of spice, and then at the end, he was using something that was listed as CBD oil that he put into his vape, but obviously it was not CBD oil. So.
And this is all so that I can maintain a good job, pass the drug test. I wanted to do other things, but I did whatever I could to be able to keep my job and deceive her a little bit. Well, I thought I was deceiving you, but you saw through it.
Paul said he used spice once. He thought he was going to die. Yeah. So, Paul's my friend. We went to high school together. Okay. And he's, you're over a year now, aren't you, Paul? He's in Georgia.
Oh, that's awesome.
He keeps saying he's going to come up here and run a radio too. I think he's a big liar.
30 seconds. Not a big fan of this commercial.
It's a great commercial, man. It's almost like the old Capone's commercials that used to be on air. Did you ever hear those?
The Capone's that's up here?
No,
yeah.
I was always
the guy with
one of
the
those
horrible
guys.
gangster accent.
No, I have heard it once, and I was insulted. I'm also from Chicago. I'm like, we do not sound like that. All right, 3 seconds.
Welcome back. That was a short break, but we're on Recovery Talk, Hope and Help for the Hurting. We haven't thrown out the number for the station to call in because we just haven't done well with call-ins. But, call the station if this show has brought you some encouragement or whatnot. We'd love to hear from anybody in the listening audience. But Freedom Auto Tech is the show's official sponsor. So this is our last 10 or so minutes together. If you have a car issue and need it getting fixed, go and use Freedom Auto Tech, because all the proceeds from Freedom Auto Tech go to a good cause, which is the ministry of Freedom Farm Ministries, which helps men like Drew in recovery. Their number is 828-355-4434. That's 828-355-4434. And Carrie's Home for Women is having a little shopping bazaar for Holiday Bazaar over at the La Quinta Inn from 9 to 2 this Saturday. And I've been telling everybody it's on the bypass, and it's not. It's on the extension, the 105 extension. So I'm sorry about that. But go and check them out. There will be other vendors there, door prizes, refreshments. So give them a shot at buying some holiday gifts, and know that all the proceeds will go to help women in recovery. So you finally have made it to Freedom Farm, right? So you just got married a week before coming here. We haven't really said much. You mentioned you have 2 children that have seen a lot of this stuff, and if you've never met, well, I've met your children. They're angels.
Thanks.
But anyway, so what is life like now in your head, Drew? Because it took a lot. It took a lot to convince you need to get help.
It took a whole lot, but I needed to to have it in my head for this to work. You know, I needed them to show me the tough love and leave me in jail for a while to kind of dry out. And I needed to acknowledge for myself that I had a problem. Otherwise, I don't think this program would have worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thankful I came to that realization. But yeah, you know, it was hard. You know, I had loved ones at home. We got married right before I came up here, and it was more of like a commitment to each other. You know, I mean, we knew that one day we wanted to get married once we got through all this stuff, but it was more of a commitment that she's gonna be there waiting on me, and I'm gonna stick this out for her. And so yeah, it definitely helped that I had that support. She came up and saw me, I think, every weekend at church. She was here every Sunday at church. So that was helpful. And yeah, I mean, I had a year to focus on myself and you know, break those habits, you know, build a relationship with Christ, and that is the ultimate reason that I've been successful. That's what was missing. That's the void that I was filling for years, for 12 years, was my relationship with Christ that I didn't have, and I have that now.
Well, we have enjoyed having you here, and something kind of unique happened about, I don't know, what, halfway through your time here? So Freedom Farm, for those listening and watching, is a 1-year commitment. Guys come up here, they leave their family, and they stay with us for 1 year. They go through 3 different phases. One phase being just a stabilization phase, just kind of get people. That's the funnest phase, isn't it, Drew?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, and then they go through a 40-day foundational phase where we're teaching them, foundational truths, and hopefully they can build on the rest of their lives. And then there's the longest part of the program, which is like a transitional phase. And during your time in the transitional phase, right?
Yeah.
What happened?
I went home and I was messing around on my son's dirt bike. Long story short, lost control of it. The brakes weren't functioning the way they should have been, and I took out a window
Of our house.
of one of the back windows of our house against our patio,
and I immediately thought you were on CBD oil again.
Yeah, you told me that later on.
Yep.
I was not, but yeah, I lost in a matter of very short minutes. I lost over half the blood in my body, almost died. Fast forward to I had a surgery to remove some glass that was still in there, that they found out later on was still in there from that accident. Almost died in that operation. Lost again over half the blood in my body during that operation. That was supposed to be an in and out procedure that day. And so yeah, this year's been a roller coaster, a testing of faith and commitment. My family moved up here. We found a house in Todd, North Carolina, right outside of Boone.
Yep. In
So
July.
that was hard, knowing that they were that close to stick it out and stay committed to them, that I would finish this program.
So for those of you that may not have caught that, he went through pretty bad medical situation, and then his family moves up here. Amanda moves up here, living in basically the same town that you're in a program in July, and you just finished last Friday. So most guys, I'm going to tell you right now, would not stay. They would just go. They'd be like, hey, look, my family's up here. I'm doing well. I can still have, by proxy, all the benefits of being around the church and around the ministry and around the guys in recovery. But you decided to stay. So what was going through your head?
I mean, to me, it was a pretty easy decision to make. I mean, I said I was going to do a year. The administrators of this program, they stress the importance of honoring your commitment to God, your promise to God, to stick out this year-long program. It's a year-long program. It's not a whenever you decide you're done program. So I wanted to honor that and do that and finish something that I said I was going to do.
And like I was saying, a commitment, a woman committed to you and showing you time and time again how much she is, and you honoring a commitment that you made and just finishing something you started. A lot of people ask me, so why, what's so magic about a year? And I was like, there's nothing magic about 12 months. There's nothing. There's no magic about 12 months. what is important is doing what I say I'm going to do, right? And I get a lot of people that have in the years tried to convince me that they don't need to do that, and I can always rest on the fact, we are a Christian program, so we make no bones about that. God is the one leading, guiding, directing this program and the men that come here. So I always ask them the couple questions. I ask them first. I say, did God bring you to this program?
100%. Looking back, I can just see the events that unfolded, and I'm so thankful that they happened. I mean, it's a crazy story, but I'm glad everything happened, because otherwise I wouldn't have been brought here. I wouldn't have had that relationship with Christ that I have now. And yeah, it's probably, I mean, all the bad things that happen, it's being here is gonna make the rest of my life that much better.
And then usually people will answer along those same lines, and then I'll say, well, do you think God put the leadership in place in here? And they say, well, yeah. And I said, well, then why did God tell you that we were wrong about the time that you're supposed to spend here?
Yeah.
And not tell us.
Right.
And what is their response?
They usually like, well, it's just the way it is. We have one quick question. We only got a couple more minutes, but you got an encouraging word for someone who is considering throwing in the towel in recovery.
Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Yeah, don't give up. Just remember all the bad things. The devil will try to trick you and remind you how good it feels, and just focus on the bad, because it's not going back is not gonna fix anything. Obviously, we all know that.
We want to talk about a guy that used all of your 9 lives, if there's anything to that whole thing. You 100%. Should not be here, my friend.
Should not be.
There's a purpose.
Absolutely a purpose. How many car wrecks that you walked away from? With dirt bike accidents that brought a bunch of suspicion on you that were just faulty brakes. Having your basically your new bride move up to the area, and you finish. Now, just so you know, we let him spend the weekend with her, but we let anybody on the weekend spend time with their family if they get it approved. You just had pretty much blanket approval for the weekends, but you did stay Monday through Friday and made all your commitments to classes and counseling and church and everything. And every
weekend I had to walk away from her and the kids, and that was hard.
It was
every weekend.
Yeah, it was hard.
And you got our pastor here. This is one of the first shows that he's actually got real involved in. But he's saying that in his experience, guys that complete a year, complete the program, and he's just saying congratulations to you both.
Thank you, Pastor Scott.
So next week is Thanksgiving, so we will not be on the air because we can't get Mike to be on the show. So he just said, forget it, I'm not coming in on Turkey Day. But we will be back with you the week following. But thanks, guys, for coming on. Thanks for being with us.
Absolutely.
And thank you all for joining the show and watching on Facebook. Pass it around to your friends, and we will see you in 2 weeks. We're done.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's nothing personal. I'm just going to be 6 hours away, and it's going to be kind of a hell of a commute.
A real engineer, board engineer would make it happen.
Oh, if I could do it, over the phone, I would.
Yeah, where's your commitment?
To Turkey. The one time of the year.
Can you hand me that? Yeah, just put it right there.
Is this yours?
It is. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.